Hello, my name's Alison and I'm a solicitor apprentice at Seals and Betteridge and work within the residential conveyancing team. And today I'm here to talk to you about the steps regarding buying and selling a house and what the conveyancing process is with that. Step 1. If one is involved, the estate agent finds a buyer, agrees the price, then writes to the solicitors with the details. If the buyer requires mortgage finance, they should speak to their lender or financial advisor at this stage. Their lender will need to issue a mortgage offer tailored to that particular property, and this offer does differ from an agreement in principle which the buyer might have already received. At this time, we recommend buyers to instruct a surveyor. A survey is very different from a lender's valuation. A valuation is purely for the lender's purposes and will not necessarily give the buyer information regarding defects to the property. A valuation may not even involve a physical inspection of the property, and so a survey is much more detailed. Buyers should discuss the different types of surveys available with their surveyor, and surveyors will recommend that buyers have all services inspected as soon as possible. Step 2. The solicitors write to their clients with their terms of business. To protect against property fraud, the seller and the buyer must provide ID. The buyer might also have to show how they acquired the money of their purchase, so it is clear it's not the proceeds of crime. Buyers will need to provide this information before their solicitor can start work on their purchase. Step 3. The seller must fill in some property forms provided by their solicitor. These forms give information about the property, such as if there's new windows, an extension, or flood problems. The seller also fills in a form confirming what they'll leave at the property. Step 4. Once the seller has completed the forms, their solicitor will prepare a draft contract and obtain the title deeds. These deeds are usually downloaded from the Land Registry website. However, if the property has not been sold since 1990, it may not be registered with the Land Registry. These are called unregistered properties and will require the seller to produce a pack of paper deeds to their solicitor. Now, these paper deeds may be stored with a bank or a solicitor if the seller does not have them. The sellers of unregistered properties should make inquiries as soon as possible to locate those paper deeds and provide them to their solicitor at the earliest stage so they can avoid delays. Step 5. The seller will provide a plan to the buyer with the contract pack, and this identifies the property boundaries. If the buyer agrees that the plan correctly shows the property and any land they are purchasing, the buyer's solicitor will use this to request searches on the property. If you are having a mortgage, searches must always be carried out. There are usually 3 searches carried out by the buyer's solicitor. A local search. This reveals things such as building works done to the property. An environmental search, and this reveals whether the property may be built on contaminated land or is in a flood area. And unless the property is a new build, a drainage and water search, and this identifies where some of the pipes run and confirms whether the property is connected to the main supply of water and sewerage. More searches may be required based on the location and nature of the property, and your solicitor will discuss this with you if you are the buyer. The time it takes for search results to return to the solicitors will depend on the timescales given by relevant local authorities. Step 6. The buyer's solicitor will investigate the title given to them in the seller's contract pack, looking through the deeds and property forms and ensuring that there are no discrepancies. They'll also check for necessary rights of way over neighbouring land, for example, a shared drive or a shared back lane. They'll also look at rights that neighbours may have over the property, for example, the right to use a shared path, private agreements in the deeds that may restrict you building things such as an extension, and paperwork for any new windows, electrical work or gas installations. Inquiries are then raised with the seller's solicitors to iron out any discrepancies or to ask any questions about the findings. Now, this part of the process can be quite time consuming. Inquiries may go backwards and forwards between solicitors before both parties are satisfied. Step 7. If the buyer is obtaining a mortgage, a copy of their mortgage offer will be sent to their solicitor once the lender has completed their own checks. The lender has their own set of conditions which the buyer's solicitor must comply with before the lender will agree to release the mortgage money. The buyer's solicitor may need to report information to the lender during the transaction and obtain the lender's confirmation that they are happy to proceed. Step 8. If the buyer has obtained a survey, the report should be sent to the buyer's solicitor as soon as possible. The buyer's solicitor will consider any issues raised in the legal section of that report, and they may need to raise further inquiries with the seller. A survey may raise matters regarding the condition or value of the property, which the buyer may consider may affect their original offer. If a buyer wishes to renegotiate the price based on the results of the survey, they should raise this with the estate agent or directly with the seller if there isn't an estate agent involved. Step 9. When the buyer's solicitor is satisfied with the seller's replies to their inquiries, they will send reports to the buyer explaining the deeds and the paperwork. The buyer will then sign the contract, transfer, and any mortgage deed where applicable, in readiness for exchange of contracts. The buyer may also be asked at this stage to transfer the deposit monies to their solicitor, and the deposit monies is usually 10% of the purchase price. The buyer's solicitor will need the deposit before they can exchange contracts. Step 10. The solicitor will ask the buyer and the seller what completion date, which is your moving date, they can agree upon. This date will need to be agreed by all people in the chain, which may involve more than just the direct buyer and seller in that transaction. Estate agents may assist with the discussions regarding completion dates, but completion dates can't be agreed until all the solicitors in the chain have completed their legal paperwork and all the buyers and sellers in the chain can also agree a date to move. The solicitors will usually require 5 working day notice before completion, as this is the normal timescale requested by most mortgage lenders to guarantee those mortgage monies will be released to the solicitor in time for that agreed moving day. Step 11. The moving date is agreed in principle. All sellers and buyers have signed their contract papers and have confirmed to their solicitors that they are happy with the property information that they have been provided with. The buyers have paid deposits to their solicitors where applicable, and any mortgage lenders are also happy to proceed. All solicitors in the chain are ready to exchange contracts. The solicitors call each other and exchange the contracts, and at this point the completion date becomes legally binding. No one can back out. Where there is a large chain of people involved in a property transaction, it can take some time to formally exchange the contracts. Step 12. The seller's solicitor will request payment figures for any charges being repaid on the sale of the property, such as mortgages. The buyer's solicitor will request mortgage monies from the lenders and undertake final completion searches, which cannot be requested until close to the completion date that has been agreed. Step 13. On the day the sale completes, the purchase monies are sent via the banking system, and once this arrives with the seller's solicitor, the estate agent is called to let them know that the sale has completed and the buyer can have their keys. It is intended that the monies will be with the seller's solicitor by 1 or 2 o'clock, depending on the contractual terms. However, this can vary as it does depend on how many solicitors there are in the chain and how quickly each bank transfer progresses through the banking system. Step 14. The seller's solicitor will now repay any mortgages and also pay the estate agent if there is one. And the buyer's solicitor will register the change of ownership with the land registry. The land registry process can take around several months to complete, but once completed, the buyer's solicitor will provide the buyer and any mortgage lender with copies of the updated title and deeds. Well, thank you for listening. That's your 14-step guide to buying and selling a property and the conveyancing process that goes with that. If you have any questions about what we've spoken about today or any inquiries, then please contact our specialist residential conveyancing team on 0800 542 4245 or info@silslegal.co.uk.